Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Well, we have a lot of crazy things to talk about today. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to them all. But I'll probably be doing what I'm probably gonna end up doing is I'm gonna end up doing recaps or rather streams that are gonna be pretty specifically on things that I missed. So I'll be doing stuff like that. I'll doing bookmarks and whatever. And these streams may vary, so they may go to maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe less. So get used to that. We're going to try to do something different here. So prepare for future streams. So what we have here is specifically we have some Mexican senators and president and the president really going off the rails. Some saying that they want to take a large amount of the United States, and then other parts to where we had the president of the Mexico, or we want to call Mexico in their way, and blaming the riots on Trump, etc. So, without further ado, let's get directly into this. So we have this here. We have this from Colin Rugg saying Mexican Senate President suggests Mexico should take a large amount of land from the United States because of all the Mexican names. The comments came from Senate President Gerardo Fernandez Noroña, sorry if I butcher that, in response to the LA riots. Names don't lie. The most spoken language in Los Angeles is Spanish. The United States government has the right to implement whatever immigration measures it deems appropriate, but they have no right to violate the dignity of immigrants. They have no right to separate families. Noroña said he told Trump Mexico would build the wall and pay for it, but would do it accordingly to the 1830 map of Mexico, or Mexico in this sense. So this is what he has to say.
Torre Trump, cuando decía el presidente electo Donald Trump estaba 16 días de tomar protesta por primera vez.
So of course he gets to say, so president taking office. And yes, we do the wall. Yes, we will pay for it, but we do it with the map of Mexico in 1830. This is what the U.S. was in 1830, and this was part of Mexico. Now, what you're seeing here, guys, is a good chunk, a really good chunk of the U.S. being there, right? So he wants to wall off that whole part of the United States. He wants to essentially take over almost all the United States. Do you know what that is? This is considered an invasion, all right? This man here is threatening to essentially, like, we'll build the wall, we'll pay for it, but we want to take over, like, at least half of your country. That's insanity here. What are we doing? Okay, so we need to do a little bit of research, right? Because obviously the research doesn't lie to where what we have here. So when we do research, we do this. When did CA leave Mexico? And obviously we here have things that it was obviously the thing here was it was part of Spain. So California left Mexico in 1948. The Mexican-American War ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which ceded a vast territory, including present-day California to the United States. California became the 31st state on September 9th, 1850. So that being said, it's been quite a while since we've owned actually the United States. So he wants to go back to all the times before California was a state. That's not how that works here. So again, this is the insanity that this guy is proposing. He wants to take over at least half of the United States. What are you doing?
No era todo México. Si ustedes pueden ver, quizás un tercio. Mínimo una guardaparte del territorio
of the U.S. territory was part of Mexico until 1846. We were stripped of these territories. We were settled there before the nation now known as the USA. The treaties of Guadalupe Hidalgo established rights for the people settled in those territories that were not respected. The city of Nuevo Laredo was a Mexican city, and the city of New Laredo was formed with the Mexicans who lived in Laredo and who did not want to stay on the U.S. side and came to what is national territory. So, again, the point being here is that this guy is essentially saying that he wants to get a big chunk of the U.S., right? That's the thing. And the issue that they have with this is that Mexican territory seized by the U.S. in 1948. Now, the point being is it wasn't seized. See, that's what they're doing. They're saying seized. It was not seized. It was by a actual which ceded a vast territory. It was a treaty, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. So we could also look at this. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed on February 2nd, 1848, officially ended the Mexican-American War. It established the border between the United States and Mexico, and resulted in Mexico ceding a vast amount of territory to the United States. Here's a more detailed look. Mexico ceded appropriately 55% of its territory to the United States, including the present-day states of California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, most of Arizona and Colorado, and parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Wyoming. The treaty established a border between Texas and Mexico at the Rio Grande River. In exchange for the ceded territory, the United States paid Mexico $15 million. The United States also assumed $3.25 million worth of Mexican debts to U.S. citizens. Mexican citizens living in the ceded territory were granted the option of becoming U.S. citizens. The treaty effectively halved the size of Mexico and had long-term effects on both nations. The treaty's provisions, particularly regarding slavery, sparked debates and contributed to the Civil War. So, what he's saying here is not 100% correct. Because, again, we paid $15 million to get these states, or to at least get California from what we're seeing here, right? So that's what we have here in this area. And then we got, so essentially what he wants is California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, most of Arizona, Colorado, and Oklahoma, Kansas, and Wyoming. He wants all of those states. He wants all of them. So this is a senator calling for essentially an invasion or to take over a good chunk of the United States. That's insanity here. And by the way, you ceded, and it was the Treaty of Guadalupe, and we did we paid Mexico $15 million, and we also gave the residents here to become the United States residents if they wanted to stay here. So you were not forced to stay, and you chose to leave. That was it. You even said that yourself. So that's the insanity here. Now, another thing that we have is that we have this here from President Claudia Sheinbaum criticizes the LA raids. Migrants are not criminals. So we're going to see this here where Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reacts to LA protests. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo is speaking out following mass anti-protests in the Los Angeles area over President Trump's immigration crackdown. Sheinbaum condemns violence. During a press conference Monday, Sheinbaum condemned the reported acts of violence over the weekend in Los Angeles and called for peaceful demonstrations. We do not agree with violent actions as a form of protest. Burning police cars appears to be more an act of provocation than of resistance. We condemn violence no matter where it comes from. We call on the Mexican community to act pacifically and not allow itself to be provoked, she said. She added that Mexico was enlisted consular services to ensure that detained citizens have access to legal representation and are guaranteed due process. A day ago, Sheinbaum praised the contributions of Mexicans in Los Angeles, calling them good, honest men and women who left to seek a better life for themselves and to support their families. They are not criminals, she said. Los Angeles wouldn't be what it is if it weren't for the Mexicans who lived there. Sheinbaum further said Mexican migrants are welcome back to the country if they wish to return. We call for a ban on violence, she said. Consuls are instructed to stay in touch with 35 detained Mexicans and their families, and above all, to acknowledge the work of their fellow Mexicans there. Sheinbaum also stressed that Mexico would continue to pursue diplomatic efforts on behalf of its citizens. The Mexican government will continue using diplomatic and legal channels available to express its disagreement through a consular network with practices that criminalize immigration and put at risk the safety and well-being of our communities in the United States. So she's essentially saying here that every Mexican that is in the United States is illegal. and you're advocating for the violence in LA. What are we doing here? What are we doing? We have a Mexican president that is pretty much advocated for the violence in LA and claiming that a lot of the people that are currently rioting in LA are good men and women, and they should continue doing it, right? And saying that they're part of the Mexican country. Meanwhile, we have a Mexican senator or a Mexico senator saying that he wants to take over 1/3 of the country. What are we doing here? And we have Democrats that are siding with these illegal immigrants. This is insanity in every single regard. Every single regard. This is complete insanity here. Of course, we have this as well. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum rebukes Kristi Noem over ICE protests. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum forcefully rejected accusations from U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem that she incited violence during protests in Los Angeles, calling the claims absolutely false and a clear misunderstanding. No, it was a clear misunderstanding. So again, what we have here is that she's trying to feign ignorance, but after trying to call for violence in our own country and claiming that illegal immigrants are part of Mexico's and they're illegal and they should be allowed to do this. This is insanity here. This is where we actually invoke the Alien Enemies Act almost immediately. That's part of what Trump should do. And I think we might have to put some heavy sanctions on Mexico because this is insanity here. It's like Mexico is not an ally. Mexico is not a friend here. They're being mostly an enemy. And I don't advocate for war. I don't want to go to war with Mexico or anything of the sort. I don't want this. But there needs to be repercussions here because this is insanity. It's like imagine somebody saying like, "Oh, by the way, Europe, we want to take control of half of your country. Otherwise, if you don't, we just won't do anything. We won't build the wall." So yeah, that's insanity here. This is the reality that we're in, guys. This is crazy. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. The riots are still ongoing, and there's still a lot more to come. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share. As always, take care, my friends.